I wandered for many years, and I finally found it. Beer Bubble! Hi everyone, welcome back to Beer Bubbles, the bubbliest podcast in the world. And this is the second episode from Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival of 2022. In this episode we meet Christian from Västra Ämterviks Bryggeri, James from Thornbridge, Jeremy from Rudgate, Sara, or as our friends call her, the Fat Cat, from the Halve Maan and Marianne, the founder and general of Swedish Beer and Whisky Festival. So, sit back, relax and enjoy. Alright, welcome back to Beer Bubbles. Still going strong here, me and Cici. And Anton, who's taking pictures.
Yeah, we gotta take a picture of Anton so you guys get to know him.
Yeah.
He's the freshest one into Beer Bubbles.
He is. And I notice now we don't have a third glass.
We'll do like this. I'll have the small one.
I have been asking you to come onto this podcast for a while now.
Yeah.
And
Should we pour the beer?
Been
finally
busy.
you're here. So I'll pour. Which one should I do first? This one?
The oat ale or havre ale, as we say.
So while I
in,
pour, you can introduce yourself to the listeners.
All right. Well, I'm Christian Thorén. I'm the owner and brewer at Västra Ämtervik Brewery in Värmland, western region of Sweden. And I've been brewing since I was a small child, almost. But the interest in drinking and brewing beer really came to me when I was in Stockholm and tried Nils Oskar Brewery, their Kalasöl, their festive beer. And I really got into the different aromas and smells of beer, and I started to brew. And I'm not originally from the region of Värmland, but I moved here like 20 years ago and started to brew with some local oats. And
the thing is, because sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no
you started
problem.
in 2014,
Yeah.
and you had an old mill just next to
Yeah,
where you started,
it's
yeah?
Just 10 miles from the brewery, we have a mill that roast oats and make flour out of it. It's a very special one that is only made in this special region of Värmland. So I tried the roasted oats in one of my home brews, an extra strong bitter, or the ESB. And it came out really nice and smooth, smoother than the one I brewed before without the oats. So I thought that, I'm onto something here. So I told my wife, Sophia, that the beer was turning out real great. And, that word to my wife went to an idea of what is Västra Ämtervik's brewery today. So this is our first and signature beer, our oat ale.
And all the beers say Fryken, which is the small lake that you are located on.
Yeah, so that's our trademark, Fryken. That's the lake we live by.
It's a really nice lake.
Should we try it?
Yeah. This
Cheers.
is my favorite beer from you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's see, if I remember this correctly, I brewed this with you once.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Some years ago.
Is it like 13% of the oats in some?
Yeah,
like
it turns out to be about 20 nowadays.
29. Okay.
20%.
I remember 13 back in the days.
But the oats normally give a bit more mouthfeel as well.
Yeah, mouthfeel. Yeah,
but it's got quite a lot of the roasted tones in this. Is this from the oats or is it from the malt?
Mostly from the oats. Yes, we use some biscuit malt as well, but it doesn't contribute with any roasted flavor. That's solely on the oats.
Because it's really, I would say, malty, but like caramelly and almost toffee notes to it, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, I love it. Almost like a candy.
Yeah, it is. It must be a really good food beer.
Yeah,
especially with grilled meats and grilled vegetables and stuff like that.
So this is the beer we sell the most to restaurants, and they use it for many of their main courses and main dishes on their menus. So yeah, it's a great mix with a lot of foods.
You said you didn't come from Värmland. Where do you come from the beginning?
From Kumla. That's a small,
Närke.
Yeah. Well, with the way we talk there's...
Här går aldrig.
Oh, yeah. It's, it's not good with the women, so to speak.
You said that yourself. But now it's the 30th anniversary of Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival.
Yeah.
And how do you think about it so far?
Well, it's nice and cozy on Thursdays, wild on Fridays and Saturdays. So I like it the most on the Thursdays because, you got the time to talk to other breweries, but to people from all around the world, actually, to just see what's going on in the world and see what they think about our products. So it's a nice talk, and it's always nice to be here in Stockholm. It's a very nice town, and it's one of the highlights of the year is the Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival.
But have you been exhibitors here before?
Yeah, but it was 4 years ago.
Okay.
So we had a pause during the Corona crisis, and But
now
we're back.
This is your second time pouring at the festival. But have you been here before at the festival as a customer?
Yes, I did back in the days.
So what do you think? It is post-COVID now. It's still Thursday, so it's Thursdays are a bit slower.
Yeah, they are.
But also, as you said, nicer. You get time to speak to the people who are interested in the beers.
Yeah, it's not all about money. It's also about networking and talking to each other and having fun and
being
a nice
in
time.
a podcast.
Yeah, and being a podcast, finally. Absolutely. Well,
do you see any new trends coming on when it comes to beers?
We started to mature some of our beers in barrels of bourbon. So I think, it could be a trend.
That's a trend for you, at least.
Yeah, in Värmland, perhaps. But I haven't. They said to me that lager is coming back. So I hope that the traditional styles will be coming back. That we're not. I think we're going back to back to basics, where tradition matters more than innovation.
And that is a good thing, you think, or?
Well, at least for us, because as a brewery, we look into tradition and try to maintain some traditional thinking into our beers, because we think that the cycles of our products last longer when we think about traditional ways of brewing, traditional ways of maybe even talking about beer. Actually, yeah. So, and I think we have a lot to learn about the traditions made years and centuries ago about brewing beer. It's not all about science anymore. I think we want beer to go back not only to the basics, but also back to emotions.
Crazy is good, but tradition, but the homely feel of having a beer is also something that is good.
Yeah. And I think that we also try to maintain and to pay tribute to the brewers and actually also the drinkers of yesterday. See what they had in their minds, and that's what tradition is for me, and what Västra Ämtervik's brewery is too.
Would you like to do the honors with the last question?
No, because I have one question before that.
Oh, you got a question before that?
All right. This is something bourbon.
Yeah, we haven't tried the other one. Yeah.
Well, you got to finish that one
So
first.
that's sorry. I was actually working here, but working and drinking. Well,
Yeah.
it's good.
So this is a bottle without a label.
Yeah, it is, but it's actually our winter ale that we brewed last year. So it's almost a year old, but it's aged in barrel of bourbon from Heaven Hill, Kentucky.
Oh.
So for 3 months it's been there, and we poured it up during the spring and also matured it in the bottles. So here we are.
Well, let's try it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's more. And you can actually feel the bourbon quite well.
Oh.
The vanilla.
Yeah.
Almost coconutty.
Yeah. Oh, you put a word to it. Yeah, I searched for what is it beyond the bourbon taste of it.
There's
But
a lot of coconut in that
Yeah,
one.
but it's like when you bite into a Bounty.
yeah.
It's like the chocolates and the coconuts, and the caramel thing.
Yeah, well,
And you said this is a year old?
yeah. The beer that went into it was brewed in November last year.
Has it had
And
any kind of second fermentation or?
No, well, we last day of the fermentation, we put it in the barrel, put on a cork, and let it sit there, and put it actually in a refrigerator room for 3 months. So, and then we poured it up. So
But you pressurized it before you put it.
yeah,
in
we
bottle,
did. We did a little bit. Yeah, because most of the carbon dioxide went.
Well, it's gonna. If it's in an oak barrel, of course, it's gonna disappear.
Yeah, it
So-
still has some tiny
So
bubbles.
it wasn't the angel's share; it was maybe the devil's share that went out of it.
I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
It's really nice, and it is still quite light.
It
It's
is.
not
Yeah, it's
heavy on the
about
palate. It's like
6% alcohol, so it's not a heavy beer.
Mhm.
So it's quite drinkable as well. So
quenchable.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was.
It's really nice.
I'm going to drink
And
that
now
one.
I can do the honors.
Okay, you do the honors.
The hardest question you're gonna get today.
All right, go.
I'm sorry, Christian. You're gonna die right now. You can have one more beer, whatever you want. What are you having?
Oh, actually, I'll go for the Nils Oskar Kalas beer.
Nils Oskar Kalasöl from Nils Oskar Brewery in Nyköping.
Good.
Are they still doing it?
Yep.
I haven't drank it.
They do it.
Drink
they
it
do
for
it,
quite a while.
I think they only do it as a special seasonal
yeah.
stuff like the påskkalas and Christmas kalas.
I have to wait
Um,
for it until Easter.
I think there's a Christmas one coming out.
Oh, yeah.
now, so,
Right.
You can have it then.
Okay, thank you for that.
Christian, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
thank you.
And have
Good
a
to see you
great
again.
festival.
Yeah, same to you. Well, glad to be here. Thanks.
Take care. Cheers.
Take care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beer Bubbles, the number one bubbliest podcast in the world. And Cece's pouring something that we both really fucking like.
Oh, this is amazing.
Yes.
I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you.
And we're sitting here with James from Thornbridge.
Hello, hello.
And we just poured Jaipur.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Who are you and what do you do at Thornbridge?
My name's James Buchanan. I'm the export manager at Thornbridge Brewery. So working here with Wicked Wine, getting all of our beers in here. We're in 39 different countries internationally, some smaller, some larger, and I manage those accounts through there. We work with a range of different distributors to get Thornbridge beer out and about.
Nice. This is gotta be one of your flagships beers,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the beer for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's your background? How did you end up in this?
So originally, I was at university. I studied international business. Alongside studying international business, I worked at the Sheffield Tap, which at the time had the largest beer selection, one of the largest in the UK, about 200 different bottled beers. Fantastic pub in the train station in Sheffield. I then did a year in America working in a beer bar up in Rochester in upstate New York. So learned an awful lot about American craft beer, the whole beer scene, everything like that. Came back, started at Thornbridge in sales, and then worked up to, using the international experience as well and to be export manager there. I've been 10 years now at Thornbridge, so a long time, fantastic place to work.
So is this one of your favorite beers of what you produce?
It is. I often get asked what my favorite one is, and I always come back to Jaipur. Particularly if it's in cask. I cannot turn down a pint of cask Jaipur. But can, bottle, keg, anything like that, I find the 10 years. I always just come back to it. It's always in the fridge. It's the beer. It pays my bills, to be honest with you. So it's got a special place.
It's your bread and butter, but it's also a fantastic beer.
Yeah, that's it. I think. We timed it. The time was right for us starting to brew Jaipur. It's got a huge following still. It's about 40% of our production overall. And really, even being here in Sweden, people keep coming up to me and saying just how much they love Jaipur, and it changed their way of thinking about beer.
Our big problem is we find it really hard to get cask conditioned over in Sweden.
Yeah, it is.
You got to speak to the guys and get it over.
Don't worry. It's topic of conversation for sure. So we'll get you more cask beer.
Because when I came up, it's like, could you do me next? Because I've got a booking at Akkurat. You go to our workplace and we'll sit in and drink beers instead.
Yeah. No, I actually saw the Jaipur tap sign for the cask ale.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
When I was sorting everything out, I'm like, oh, what the
Yeah, we've done it over the years here, and it's being worked on at the minute to bring more cask back to Sweden as well.
Because this is a fantastic beer.
It is.
It's really traditional. This is going back to what IPAs were in the beginning. But with a modern twist.
Yes, exactly. To be honest with you, there's been so many. We did a little talk earlier on about British beer and British beer history and things, and the time I've been working in beer, it's changed so much. When we started out, craft beer wasn't a term used in the UK. It was an American thing. People didn't know what it was. People argued for years afterwards about who was and wasn't a craft brewery. But when we started, we were just a brewery making an IPA with these fun American hops. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, in the beginning, in the UK, it's always been a question of, are you a beer drinker or a lager drinker?
Yeah.
So if you drink beer, you drink like handcrafted proper beers.
Yeah.
And if you're a lager drinker, you drink Stella or something else.
That's it. Even that's changed. Our Lucas is our second best-selling beer. It's a Helles lager at 4.2. And now we found, it's almost come right back round with the beer geeks now really appreciating a well-made, particularly maybe a Germanic style, but a well-made lager.
Is that a trend?
Yes, to a degree. We do a lot of it. So it's and most breweries setting up will now try and at least do one lager. It works well in the on-trade particularly. So
because we realized here in Sweden that like old styles are coming back. That is kind of a trend, especially in beer bars and that people are tending to. They love the experimental stuff.
Yeah.
But they want to drink more traditional beers.
Yeah, they go mental when a Schwarzbier comes on tap. They're like, no, give me that. I'm like, all right.
I'd agree. We see the same thing. Some of it, I think, is people are going back to what they know and what they can trust as well. I mean, of course, unfortunately, it's a tough economy at the moment. People want to know they're spending their money in the right way, so they go for quality over maybe, new, wild and experimental. But also there is, especially with, for me, British brewing history is fantastic. I'm on the bar down there with Timothy Taylor's Landlord, Rudgate's Ruby Mild, fantastic beers, that are still going very strong today in cask as well. And you now see these breweries turning back to brewing traditional British styles too. They're certainly coming back more popular.
And it's the 30th anniversary of the Stockholm Beer and Whiskey Festival. Is it your first time here or have you been here before?
Third time.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you think about this year and the years you've been here?
Love it. I'm just happy to be back, to be quite honest. It was fantastic. Of course, we had the pandemic and everything else. It all changed. So I'm very thankful to be back in Stockholm.
We're finally meeting people again.
Exactly.
And these crazy people that are geeks. That really love and are passionate about the one thing that we love, which is beer.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I've been twice before, so actually coming back and recognizing people and seeing familiar faces after so long and just catching up, and it's great. And so, very thankful. It's, really good to be back on.
We're going to do this short, and I'm going to, because you have to get your dinner.
At
our bar.
Yeah.
At your bar? You going to Akkurat?
Yeah.
They booked a table at Akkurat.
Yeah.
So that's why he's in a hurry.
No, we can take our time.
I respect that.
I love Akkurat. It is one of me and my wife came on holiday many years ago to Stockholm. Had to go to Akkurat, had to go through the whiskies, the fantastic selection, talking to the barman, and probably for us two together, one of the drunkest nights we've ever had. It was amazing, so much fun.
I'm sorry,
what a
but
great
we
bar.
are not working tonight.
No.
But Nisse and Nico is in the bar.
Okay,
they're both fantastic.
I'll say hello, but fantastic bar,
I've got to ask you the ultimate question, though.
Please.
You're going to die today.
Okay.
And you get a chance to drink one more beer.
Yeah.
Whatever in the world.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Well, Jaipur's obviously biased, but after that, it would be Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. I mean, it was the beer really that got me into beer. I mentioned, starting at, for example, a Sheffield Tap and drinking it. And actually, I remember even drinking Torpedo and thinking, oh, it's so bitter, what is this? And then realizing what it was and stuff. But the Pale Ale before the Torpedo, Pale Ale is it's a perfect beer. It tastes fantastic. Even today, it's still amazing. I've been out to the brewery and loved every minute of it there. So, it's got a special place for me, Sierra Pale.
James, it's been absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and enjoy some Jaipur together.
We're the ones thanking you.
No, thank you. It's great. So I'm looking forward to Akkurat. It's going to be
have fun at Akkurat.
I will indeed. Don't you worry.
The Jaipur is still amazing.
So we who have left in the glass.
Well, I've finished mine.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, welcome back to Beer Bubbles, the #1 bubbliest podcast in the world, and we're sitting here with Jeremy Craig.
Hello.
From Rudgate.
Hello.
Tell us a bit about who you are.
Who I am? Well, my name's Craig. I'm from England. 46 years old, if that matters. I grew up in the north of England in Harrogate. I studied at school. I actually studied after school music as a degree. And I suppose this leads to whilst I was doing my degree in music, I got a part-time job at Rudgate Brewery washing barrels. And then when
you kind of took the long way in.
Yeah, the long way in. I grew up in the pub trade. So my parents have always had pubs. And so working at a brewery seemed quite fun because I could see where all the beer came from, And then in about 95, I started working at Rudgate Brewery. And then basically, I decided that music I enjoy, but I enjoy playing. I didn't want to be a teacher, really, at a school or anything. So I ended up sort of working more at the brewery whilst I was doing a few other part-time jobs. And then one thing led to another. As time progressed, I got more and more into the brewing. I started doing some brewing courses. And then I did the Certificate of Brewing Competency with the IBD. And then in 2008, I bought the brewery from Richard and Bruce, who were ex-Bass brewers, who originally set the brewery up until their pension schemes kicked in. So their pension schemes kicked in. They wanted out of the breweries, and I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to take on my own business, and that's what I did. We bought the brewery, and the year after I bought the brewery, in 2009, our Ruby Mild won Champion Beer of Britain, the Camera Champion Beer of Britain, which is a fantastic accolade and award. And then that instigated a massive rush on beer sales, predominantly Ruby Mild, but also just the whole brewery. And I grasped that and expanded the brewery, brought more staff in, put more tanks in, brewed more beer. It was real hard work for 2 or 3 years. And then we eventually built a new brewery in 2012, which is where we are now. Bigger brewery. We improved the sort of brew plants and the whole infrastructure of the brewery, and the fact we'd grown meant I could bring in a proper sales team. It meant we could have sort of designated drivers, marketing people out on the roads, get a proper brewer in that was full-time concentrating on the job, and sort of growth leads to growth. So that's sort of the basic story of me and how the brewery started.
It's really nice.
But I've got to ask as well, the names, they're really like Viking. Well, you got one called Viking.
Yeah, correct. So
you got Battle Axe, and you got like...
Yeah, so the reason Rudgate Brewery is where it is, when Richard and Bruce set the brewery up, they were looking for somewhere that had a good location for deliveries, the water was good, and the rent was cheap. so
as you do.
As you do. So they were all found in the Marston Business Park, which is an old World War II airfield, just off the road of Rudgate. On the road of Rudgate is the road where the Vikings approached York when they took it over. So with that in mind, we thought it would be quite fun to use that sort of history as our names for the brewery. So the first beer we ever brewed was Viking Bitter, and then Battle Axe Bitter was introduced. And then our Jorvik Blonde came about when I brought the brewery in about 2011. I think we introduced Jorvik Blonde because we didn't have a permanent blonde on the portfolio. Ruby Mild is one that is just the name of the beer. It is what it is. That doesn't have any Viking connections at all. We've got Valkyrie American Pale Ale as a permanent beer as well. And for about 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years, every special we brewed was all Viking names. We had Thor's Hammer, Asgard's Legend, Loki's this. It was quite an interesting sort of style of names for the Viking enthusiasts, but we sort of ran out of names, and so then our monthly specials then became a little bit more beer related as the craft beer started taking over. We started to call them names that were more relevant to the sort of beer, really. So it was all quite interesting. So that's where the Viking names came from.
But you're a musician from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting here with two musicians.
Okay.
He's a guitarist, I'm a singer.
Okay.
Is that kind of, because to me that kind of creativity actually translates quite well into the beer business.
Brewing. I think it does, yeah. And like a lot of people that are brewers are also quite good chefs, because they it's all sort of, if I say it's similar.
It's flavours.
Yeah. It's sort of similar, creating a dish. Food is very similar from a creativity point of view to creating a recipe for beer. It all links together, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now it's the 30th anniversary of the Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival.
Yeah.
And is it your first time over, or
it is, and it's also the 30th year of Rudgate Brewery this year.
It
is.
Really? We started in '92, yeah. So yes,
nice.
It's my first time in Stockholm, yeah.
Nice. What do you think about it so far?
Fantastic. Yeah, I love the enthusiasm of everybody here. I love the venue. I think it's a fantastic venue. I think it's been set up really well. I'm not just saying this. I have been saying it all day. I really do think it's great. I think it's been set up very professionally. I think all the guys and girls coming here are really enthusiastic. I think it's staffed well. I think the selection's great, and I think the whole visual aspect is really good as well. Yeah.
And the customers are quite interested.
Very interested. Yeah. I mean, in England you either have sort of beer festivals or trade shows, and this is a little bit in the middle maybe. And you're getting the real enthusiasts in a real sort of captivated environment, enjoying what's going on. Yeah.
Thursdays are more for the enthusiasts, and
then Friday, Saturday is more for the.
And then it becomes more of a bar. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's fun as well.
You guys are doing quite traditional beers.
Yep.
Do you look at beer trends at all, or are you just doing your stuff?
No, we do follow beer trends. We know what's going on in the marketplace. We did try doing some slightly wackier beers, I suppose. But then realised that actually, certainly in recent years, the craft ale revolution kicked in and all the breweries open, and there's some amazing wacky beers out there. Love them or hate them. But we thought, well, no, we tried a few different ones. We do sort of quite interesting monthly specials, but only interesting in that the hop profiles are slightly different, tend to be paler beers and all the rest of it. We don't sort of have many beers with lactose or fruit sort of flavours in them or anything like that. It tends to be just more traditional beers, and actually certainly in England at the moment
the trend is actually coming back to you.
Yeah, it's coming back to the trad stuff, and you're finding now a lot of the craft breweries are starting to do trad beers,
which is awesome. Both me and Rasmus, we love our traditional beers. I'm still waiting for the trend of milds coming to Sweden, because and it's probably never going to happen. But
milds are
we love milds.
Yeah.
Especially a dark mild.
Yeah. But also we do enjoy like a really good crafted lager.
Yeah.
And the craze beers, to me at least, they are toning down, and they, even though they might be a bit on the haze side or whatever, they still have some of the traditional in them nowadays.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right with that. Yeah, and I think as the vegan style beers and that come in, you're starting to find traditional beers are being naturally hazy and all the rest of it because they're not putting findings in them or filtering them back quite as much. Yeah, but there's a definite, I wouldn't say a resurgence in traditional ales, but I'd sort of say the playing field's balancing out, and you're starting to see a lot more traditional beers become more regularly available in outlets in the UK and I think over here as well. Yeah.
Should I do the honors with the
Yes,
with
you
the
should.
hardest question you're gonna get today? I'm sorry, you're gonna die right now, and you can
Fair
have
enough.
one more beer,
Okay.
whatever you want. What's the last one you're having?
Oh, now that is an interesting question. Now, do you suggest one of your own beers, or do you?
It's
think
all
of
up to
some-
you. It's all up to you.
Yeah.
What's your choice?
That is a very tricky question.
You should know that Tim from Timmy Taylor's.
Yeah, he's here today.
He said
Yeah,
landlord.
we've
Well,
been-
he said the landlord, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what my favourite. I mean, the Rudgate beers. I love the Jorvik Blonde and I love the Ruby Mild but they're totally different beers. But then when I go into a bar and have a pint of Battle Axe, I also think that's great. I don't drink our chocolate stout and APA so much. This isn't answering the question, though, is it? Nope. I don't.
Whatever beer in the world,
Yeah,
have one.
Man, you're gonna die happy.
One beer
That's
that
what
I
you want.
really enjoy is Oakham Inferno.
Huh?
What?
Oakham Brewery.
Okay.
Their Inferno is a fantastic beer.
What is it? It's
It's a pale hoppy sort of beer, but it's sessionable at 4% as well. But would that be the last beer I'd ever have? You see, and I also used to like York Guzzler, so I don't know if I can answer the question. I like too many beers.
Jeremy, we're gonna leave it at that. No
Leave it at
worries.
that. Yeah. At least I've mentioned some other great beers. Yeah.
It's been absolutely fantastic having you in the podcast, and have a great festival.
Thank you.
And
Cheers.
cheers.
Cheers. Perfect.
My friends here call me Fat Cat.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Beer Bubbles, the bubbliest podcast in the world. This is CC. Rasmus is sadly standing in the bar accurate right now, so he really hasn't got the time to sit here with me. So instead, I've got something beautiful. I've got Sara here from the Halve Maan, not the Halve Maan, the Halve Maan. Welcome to Beer Bubbles.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
So tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you, and how the hell did you end up in the beer business?
I'm Sara. I have been in the beer industry all my life. So I'm German, and the background is finance and brewing, and been always doing beer, really. And that's how the journey started. I went to Munich after my degrees and started in different breweries in English, German, Belgian breweries. And now, since it's now nearly 4 years, I'm with the Halve Maan in Belgium.
And what is the brewery? What's the history? Because it's one of these breweries with a proper history.
Yeah, so I was in a very young age, in my 20s, when I visited the Halve Maan, and I said I want to work for these guys. And back on the days, they were very small, and I never thought that I would ever be able to work for them. And the Halve Maan is 500 years old, and we have been always in the same area. It's always been in a Maas family hand, and now Van Este. And the brewery is in the 6th generation now with Safir Van Este, the owner. His mother, Veronique Maas, and her family built the brewery back on the days, which I'm very proud of to be part.
So it's a 500-year-old brewery.
Yes.
And you do like traditional styles of beer, but you've added a few things to your range. You're going to see the photos on our social medias, because it's not just the Bryggsesort double that we've seen in Sweden before and the Straffe Henrik quadruple. There's a few more.
Yeah, so I will tell you a bit. So we have the first beer which we had in a brewery called Bruges Zot, and the name comes from the drunken people of Bruges called the Zotjes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you see always the gesture head, that's something we are known for. And again, we are one of the most visited breweries in Belgium. So, and our brewery sits in the center of Bruges.
Okay.
And interesting is, I mean, we have a whole range. We have the Bruges Zot range, a Straffe Hendrik, and the Blanche. And within this, we create some more beers. So we have a blonde, which is 6%. We have a double with 7.5%. Then we have the Straffe Hendrik line, which is a triple with 9% and the quadruple with 11%. So Veronique Mas, the mother of the current owner, in the 80s, she invented the Straffe Hendrik line. And everybody wants to know what called Straffe Hendrik or Hendrix or whatever we call it. So all the generation boys in the brewery called Henry, Heinrich or Henri. So she said, I will call the beer then Strong Heinrich or Strong Henri or Strong Hendrik. So that's why this range called Straffe Hendrik.
And it is quite strong as well. But we've got the quadruple in front of us, and you guys, you brought me the nicest gift as well, because you do something special with the quadruple from time to time.
Indeed. So just to let you know, so to expand the brewery, we have built a pipeline which goes from the center of Bruges, because we can't extend up and down. We said, okay, what are we going to do to get our more beers to the people and do some more creations? We built a pipeline which goes from our main brewery in the center, 3.2 kilometers, to our new bottling and labeling line. And what we do now with the quadruple, this goes each year to a blend of oak, American oak, French oak, and Bordeaux barrels. And this is a year it will stay in the barrels, and then we blend this beer. And before that, we had them sometimes in rum barrels, in cognac barrels, and this is how we are known for. And that's what we do with the quadruple. It's very nice.
It's a beautiful beer, and you know what? I'm just going to open the bottle and pour some for us. And I tell you guys, this is Breakfast for Champions. It's now 12 o'clock. The fair is just open on the second Thursday, and we are pouring an 11% quadruple for us as breakfast. Cheers.
Chin, chin. So the quadruple, as you see yourself, Chris, we have firm on it, which we really know. And firm, we have to have this in beer because sensority is very important for the beer, right? To have, because it gives the flavors and CO2 combination in your mouth.
And also the reflux you get when you swallow it. It's the CO2 like jumps up your nose with loads of aromas.
Exactly, this is where it comes from, and it keeps the beer fresh. So important for us is you pour it perfectly. We want to have a nice head, and people think sometimes, why is this head? You're damaging, I want more beer. But it is very important for your flavors to have the head. And
it also retains flavor in the beer because the head works as a lid on your beer, basically.
Exactly. So, and I personally think it's the perfect lunch beer, breakfast beer. So I'm very happy to be with you here. Thanks so much for having me. What we get on here, obviously it's a dark beer. We brew our beer only with aroma hops, which is important because aroma hops, as we know, they are low in alpha acids.
Yep.
And means we have a complex beer with low bitterness, smooth bitterness, and we have loads of flavors, dryness, a complexity, which makes for me, we are going away for all this IPAs, double dry hop beers, and we come to the smoothness of this. And that comes from the aroma hops, really, what we use.
The aroma hops and the caramelized malts, of course.
Obviously, we use roasted malt, indeed, and we have about 6 different malt varieties we use, and our cultivated own yeast, which is underestimated always. We will never speak about the one cellar, but it is the most important part as well, next to hops and malt.
We talked earlier and said, up until fermentation, beer is all about chemistry. But when you introduce yeast, you actually introduce a living organism. And it can be moody. It can be a bit cranky sometimes. You need to be nice to your yeast, and the yeast will be nice to you.
Exactly. I couldn't say it better. It's a one cellar. It's a living life. And our beers, as everybody probably know, second fermentation in a bottle means that the beer develops its flavors during process. Means the residual sugars are eaten by the yeast, and we have produced always CO2, and the flavor profile changes. So that's a very distinct thing to say for Belgian beers and what we do, obviously. It's very important to have second fermentation in the bottles. What does this create and what does this do with the beer? And if you look at the beer now, how long it is, so this beer is lost to 2024, which is in bottles, and the heritage, what we do, lost about 10 years.
Yeah.
Aging process. And I think even that, as you have tried the heritage, it can stay longer.
It can stay about 20 years at least in a bottle. And I'd say this, I've had a few old Stafford Henry quadruple, and they last longer than, I don't know if you put
normally
2 or 3
we would say
years.
4 years,
4 years
in the bottles, but I personally agree with you. They definitely, and again, we have residual sugars, so if we have enough yeast, there's enough flavors to go. I guess you agree with that. And if we have the living organism in the beer, means we have enough flavors with.
Oh yeah, of course. Gonna ask you a quick question. This is your first day this time at the Beer and Whiskey Festival. You've been here before.
Yes.
What do you think of the Stockholm Beer and Whiskey?
Oh my God, I'm absolutely a big fan of this festival in Sweden. So when Sebastian from Colorful Brands BV asked me if I want to come over this year again, I definitely directly said yes, I want, because this festival is one of the best ones I have been, and the organization is brilliant. The range of whiskies and beer breweries you have here, I'm very impressed. No, I'm very impressed, and about the hospitality of the Swedish people. No, very, very. Thanks for having me. I'm very, very excited to be here.
This is awesome, and for me to meet you and try these beers together with you, that's a big one for me. We're gonna move on because otherwise this is gonna be too long. We talked a little bit about. We normally talk about beer trends in the podcast. And when it comes to Belgium and Germany mainly, and Great Britain, tradition is quite... But they have quite a long tradition of brewing beers, which means that it's hard to change. Do you see any modern brewers popping up in Belgium as well?
Yes. I mean, we have a couple, I would say. A couple is usually 2. A few, I would say, a few more, which do IPAs, which do the traditional dry hopping. At the moment, living in London, I can say we are not that experimental, obviously. We are still traditional. Not that traditional that in Germany is. Germany still stays more traditional.
Reinheitsgebot.
Exactly. The purity law, what we have there from 1516 is always there. What we don't have, obviously, in Belgium. So, because this not sits on our head, we have some breweries coming up, but the tradition of Belgian beer stays. So I would say, yes, we have some breweries coming up, but I would say Belgium will stay traditional. We don't do American West IPAs double dry hopped, which I think there is enough out there. And I personally like our range of Belgian beer to be complex in a nice dryness and bitterness, and not craziness with hops. I personally
more malt and yeast forward than hop forward.
Exactly. And I believe totally in balance. Well, balance is my favorite word to say when I use our beers. So yes, the trend is definitely there. There is little market there, but I feel that it will stay as it is. We don't do, I mean, there is, as I said, there is enough double dry hopped American West Coast IPAs out there. Why should we in Belgium continue doing that, right?
I'm very happy that you do traditional beers, because the more I drink, the older I get. Old man now. You're just going back to drinking traditional styles. I love British Milds. I love German Pilsners, the Belgian doubles, triples, quadruples. I find them fascinating because they're so complex, but with nuances instead of screaminess, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. No, I am with you, but I think I can see the trend more going to traditional beers as well. I can see it in whole. I look after 30 countries, after the export in 30 countries, and I can clearly see that the trend goes more towards traditional beers than the trendy beers. And I think it's okay to be there, because to get complex beers, smooth and with a balance, is harder than, personally, I think, to get it more dried and hopped.
I totally agree. And these beers actually have a shelf life as well. When you talk about the haze craze and those beers, you should drink them when they're done.
So 3 months, I think the IPAs lost. Anything above 3 months, I don't think IPAs are going to taste, because hops obviously loses its flavors as we go, and we have to understand that. And if you see my traditional beers, they can last forever at the end of the day. So I think, yes, there is trends going on, but why shouldn't we stick to traditional and go with good stuff we have done since 500 years?
Yeah. I've got a question for you, Sara. This is the last question, and this is quite kind of a tough one, especially for someone who loves beer. I'm sad to say, but you're going to die today, and you can have one more beer before you die. The final beer. It doesn't have to be your range. It can be any beer in the world. What will you have?
Oh, it's very clear. I will have our heritage. That will be my... If somebody would ask me, it will definitely be my last beer. And the second last beer, I have to tell you that as well, will be our Straffe Hendrik Wild, which we use Brettanomyces, which we have invented our yeast at the Catholic University of Leuven. So I would say definitely our heritage. And if they ask me what is your second beer you're gonna die, I would definitely say our Straffe Hendrik Wild. And there is nothing else I would say about that.
Sara, thank you very much for participating in the podcast, and have a great festival.
Chris, it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And again, Sweden, I love you, and you guys are brilliant. And 30 years festival, I'm very proud to be here the next few days. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi guys, welcome back to Beer Bubbles, the bubbliest podcast in the world. This is CC. Rasmus is sadly at Akkurat work in the bar right now, so he couldn't be with us. But I've got the best person in the world with me right here, right now, Marianne Wallberg, the founder, the reason we have beer festivals at all in Sweden, one of the big heroes in the beer business in Sweden. Thank you very much for what you've done, and welcome to Beer Bubbles podcast.
Thank you so much, Cici.
You are a fantastic person. I've known you for...
How many years now?
I don't know, but it's more than 20.
Yes.
It's less than 30, because I wasn't here for the first 3 years.
How old were you 30 years ago?
30 years ago, I was, 20.
Yeah, but you were allowed to come in.
Yeah. This is the 30th anniversary of the Beer and Whisky Festival. Tell us a bit about this year's festival.
This year's festival we are so happy to be able to organize it after COVID. Yeah. Everyone wants to have it, but we still have a lot of the business. Everyone has a big problem with the staff. Everyone is sick or been starting working with other things, and it's a big...
It's a tough business.
It's a tough business now, yes.
We get customers back, but we don't have staff to take care of them, basically. But you have... I was amazed that you got as many exhibitors.
They are heroes. They are heroes. Yes, and we gladly had 12,000 visitors last weekend.
That is
and
not bad.
We are expecting more than 15,000 this weekend.
That's beautiful.
I think that's good.
And the feeling, the ambience is fantastic this year.
It is.
I was here last Thursday, and I just went around with a big smile on my face all day.
At last, we can do it again. We had a small festival last year, but that was much smaller because of all of the COVID passes and everything that the authorities asked us to do.
But you did it with bravura back then as well.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about the history of the festival, because you weren't allowed to start the first festival.
No, the alcohol law in Sweden said it was not possible. It was against the law to have festivals with alcohol and also tastings. But we had this community here that helped me doing this. It's a long story, but I started the festival because I didn't know anything about beer and there were no one to ask. So I started the festival with people who could come here and teach me and others what beer is. Because in Sweden by then we had Big Strong. And I thought it was so silly to order a big strong because they didn't order a big food.
No.
I was thinking wine. I was a wine drinker and didn't know anything about beer. Now I know a lot about beer.
I'm not saying you had to learn, but you did it with pleasure. And
I did it gladly, yeah.
And this, the exhibitors you got here actually speaks to that as well, because they're all people who want to show their stuff to the public and teach people how to drink good beer.
And teach them how to find their own taste, because that is the most important of everything. We teach people what kind of beers and whiskies and others that we have, and then they have to find their own taste in different situations, of course. And that is so good that we have all these experts here.
Yeah, and it's I can't pronounce it enough. This is a fantastic festival. If you haven't been, go. Because we're going to have one next year as well.
I changed the law. Because
you got legislations that made it possible to do this.
Yeah, it took me many years because I'm a private person and I was not allowed to what do you say in remissinstans in English?
I don't really know.
So the community here, they hired 2 lawyers to help me. So we worked together with the change of the alcohol law from 2007, and it was ready 1st of January 2011. And without that, we wouldn't have had any fairs, beer fairs or whiskey fairs in Sweden. But now we can do that because of our work, and I did it on my free time.
We gotta keep that in mind, guys. If we go to a festival in Sweden, it's all because of Marianne.
They should send me a ticket at least.
I think they should send you tickets as well. The exhibitors you have here right now, some of them has been with you for quite a long time.
Yeah.
One of them is the guys I used to work for at Oliver Twist, great brands. I brought with me the 20th anniversary beer that is here.
That's a good beer.
Yeah, it's
Dale's
Pale Ale from Oscar Blues, who always have a small hidden note.
I haven't seen that before.
No, they always write something on the bottom of the can, and this one that is sent now is Heja Sverige or Go Sweden.
Yeah.
So it's just for us.
And then Helen, who works with me, she was here from the beginning as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was an exhibitor who became a work partner.
Yeah.
And then an exhibitor again.
Yes.
And
now
then
a
she's
work
back
partner.
again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. And then we had Börje Salming. Everyone knows about the
hockey player.
Börje Salming. He is unfortunately very ill right now. But he was here the first time and every beer festival. And he went here. He came as a visitor last weekend. So we were very proud about that too.
I've got to say cheers. And I brought one of your favorite beers.
Yeah.
Beer brands.
Do you like the glass this year? It's like Belgian style.
It's a Belgian pokal. It's like a trophy.
So, yeah, it is. Yeah, that is a strong blonde. Ooh.
Breakfast for champions.
Yes.
But could you tell us a bit about the future of the festival? What's going to happen with the festival?
The festival will go on. Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival will go on. We don't know, though, if we can stay in this house. Because the whole area around the fair has been sold to a pension company.
Okay.
And they don't know right now what to do with the area. So we haven't had any answers. We would like to stay here. But we have starting to have discussions with other areas.
Other venues.
Yes. So we will go on. But I will go down a little bit. I will not work as hard as I do today. I will be like a senior advisor, and we have eyes on a few persons that will come in and work with us, and it has to be someone that really love beer the way that we do.
Has to drive.
Yes, but it will go on, and I will still be there until no one wants me anymore.
Well, we want you all the time, Marianne.
Thank you.
You know that. But next year is also the 30th anniversary for the whiskey part of
Yes, it is. We started
Stockholm
that in
Beer Whisky.
1993.
Yep.
And the reason I took in whiskey, it was, do you remember Björn Hult, of
Oh, yeah.
course? He was the only whiskey expert who had tastings in 1993. And we had one whiskey club in Sweden, I think one or two. Linköping, I think it was. And then we did not have any distilleries at all.
No.
So Björn, he told me that, you understand, Marianne, that whiskey is beer. Malt whiskey is beer without hops before we make it as a whiskey. Oh, I said, then we must take in whiskey at the beer festival, and then it became Stockholm Beer and Whiskey Festival. Unfortunately, Björn died.
Too early.
Yeah, 1997. When we started the beer festival, we had 8 breweries in Sweden. Now we have approximately 500.
Which is fantastic progress. And there was no distilleries, and now when it comes to whiskey and gin distilleries, we're up to about 40.
Yes, more than that, actually. But whiskey who produces whiskey is a little bit more than 10.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah, super. Future looks bright for both the festival and for drinkers or lovers of good drinks, at least.
Yes, it is.
Marianne, I'm not going to keep you for long because I know you got, excuse the expression, but you have shitloads to do.
Yeah, I do. Because this year we rent the house. For the last 9 years, I was running the fair myself with my staff, of course. But then we left the fair in December because of the new owners would like to run it themselves, and did I want to employ more people and start over again? I didn't know what would happen with the COVID and everything. So we went into our old office in the city, and now we rent it. So I'm working with that to have.
We're sitting actually where your offices were.
Yeah, but because the people who run the fair now, they have never worked with any fair before, so that makes it a little bit harder for me.
You are kind of the fireman running around.
Yeah, everywhere.
I'm gonna ask you the last question.
Yep.
You are going to die today. You can have one more beer. What beer would that be?
Since I'm a very curious person and I don't want to die without taste, maybe it could be the bottle I got yesterday. I haven't had time to open it. It was a Blue Chimay. Was it a Grand Reserve?
Grand Reserve, yeah.
Was it with the rum cask?
I think it is a rum mature, the last one.
And I was planning to taste that tomorrow, but maybe I will try it today then.
You should, Marianne. Thank you very much for being in the podcast.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, and we tip our hats to you. You are a true hero of Beer Sweden.
And you are too.
Oh, thank you.
Always been. I remember every time that we have been around here by the consumers and trying to teach them, go there, try this, with the, what did you call it?
The beer safari.
The beer safari. I miss it this year.
Yeah, but I didn't have a chance to, or I couldn't get off work enough to do it. But
I see. But you did a fantastic work.
We'll see. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Maybe next year.
Yeah. We could do a combined whiskey and beer safari, maybe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and get back to work after you've finished your beer.
Yeah, skål.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Well, my friends, that's it for this time. But we will be back next Friday with a special interview, because at the festival, CC had a chance to sit down with proper beer royalty. So don't miss that. Also, check out our Patreon for a chance to win cool merchandise from the festival. And special thanks to Bishop's Arms, Elite Hotels, and our lovely workplace Akkurat for sponsoring this podcast. See you next week, and drink better beer. I wandered for many years, and I finally found it. Beer